Now, for this problem, let's read the introduction. Jose works for a store that gives him the option to choosing 4 different methods of getting paid. That's kind of interesting. Not usually likely, but somehow they give you options on how you want to get paid for what's happening. Most of the options work on commission, which means he gets paid extra for every item he sells. The number of items he sells per hour is represented by X. The amount of money he gets per hour, paid per hour, is represented by Y. Complete the table. So what we're looking for instance, this equation is describing how much he gets paid in 1 hour. X stands for how many items he sold. Y stands for how much he gets paid in 1 hour on average, depending on how many items he has. So his name's Jose. So that's the key. So if we look right here at this one right here, what are we given? There are 4 situations. Here's the situation. Situation 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for situation 1, can you tell we're given a graph to depict this person's pay? For situation 2, what are we given? Can you tell it's an equation? For situation 3, we're given a table. And for situation 4, we're given a sentence. So there's 4 different payment methods. So for situation 1, we want to fill in the rest of this so we can better understand how this person's getting paid every hour. So we can compare. So we first got to fill in the table so then we can compare from one person to the next. So here we go. How do we decide which one of these we want to do first? Well, if we have a graph, would a table be probably the easiest thing to try to get from a graph? Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my graph and I'm just going to put a couple dots. There's a good dot. I see another one right. Oh, I got to do 1. Do you see you have 0, 1, and 2? Do I have 0, 1, and 2? 0, 1, and 2 right there. Okay, go ahead and mark it on your sheet. So, and let's look, what is that value? For instance, at 0, what is that? What's it going by? Is that going by 8, 9, 10, 11? Are they going by 1s? 4. If that's an 8 right there, is that 9, 10, 11, 12? So would that be 10 right there? At 8, can you tell that's 10? At 1, what is it? That's 12. 13, is that 14? So that'd be 14. You can't really see it very great. If you look at your sheet, you'll see it better. At 2, there's 16, 17, 18. So you now have the payment for those. So at 0, can you tell it's 10? At 1, can you tell it's 14? And at 2, can you tell it's 18? We now created a table from a graph. So if I want to get an equation from this, let's think about, these are lines, right? And isn't a line y equals mx plus b? Doesn't b stand for the y-intercept? Just think about that. B is your y-intercept. So isn't that your y-intercept right there? Isn't this your y-intercept, your 0? And isn't your common difference, see the common difference? Isn't that your slope? Isn't the common difference your slope? So can you tell, what's my common difference? What am I changing by? 4. Aren't I adding 4 each time? It's called your slope, your common difference. And what's your y-intercept? 10. Isn't it the 10? So watch, can you make your equation? If your common difference is 4x plus your y-intercept 10, does that look like an equation for that line or for this table? If you think of arithmetic sequences, is this an arithmetic sequence? Your first term is 14, your second term is 18. Isn't this your 0 term? Aren't you adding 4 every time? Think of the graph. Isn't starting at y-intercept of 10? Aren't we going up 4 over 1, up 4 over 1? Now the sentence is a little bit trickier. If I wanted to get this sentence right here, to get this sentence, I want to think, okay, well for a sentence, aren't we going to talk about the y-intercept and the slope? Doesn't the y-intercept stand for how much a person gets paid each hour? Isn't it $10 an hour? Plus, don't they get paid $4 per X, per item sold? So this person gets $10 an hour plus $4 per item sold. So let's write that as a sentence. He gets $10 an hour plus $4 per item sold. That's what you want to understand. An equation is just describing something. This is what he started with, $10 plus $4 every changing X item sold. Meaning, what does this mean right here, this 2? What does it mean at 2? It's saying if he sold 2 items, don't you put a 2 in there? Isn't that $4 times 2 plus 10? So didn't he make $18 that hour? If he sold 0 items that hour, wouldn't he make $10 still? For his salary, he still get his hourly wage, plus, but no bonus, no commission. If he sold 1 item that hour, wouldn't he get $10 plus 1 times 4? Isn't that what that's saying? So what this table is really just saying is, oh, this is how many hours you worked. This is how much he gets paid that hour, depending on how many items he can sell. So let's look at this paying scale. What are we doing? We have an equation to start with. So from an equation, what do you think? Do you think it's easier to graph it, easier to make a table, or easier to make a quick little sentence? It all depends. Could we quickly actually make a sentence to see what's happening as a scenario? Yeah, you could do any of these first. I'm going to do the sentence first just because. What does this 12 represent? He's getting $12 an hour, correct?
Yes.
Plus, how much does he get per item? $3. Oops, $3 per item sold. Can you kind of follow what that says? It's saying he starts at $12 an hour, but he gets $3 per item sold. Okay, that helps us give a context to what's happening here. Now, can we fill in these holes with this equation? Can we simply plug in 0, 1, 2, and fill in the table? So we plug in 0 here. What's 3 times 0? 0. Because if he made no commission, is he just getting his $12 an hour? So can we put a 12 right here? For the next one, if he sold 1 item that hour, if he sold 1 item, what's $12 plus the $3 one time? Is that 15? And can you see the pattern? Do you have to plug in 2 or can you see the pattern? Can you see, aren't you just adding 3 each time? So what's this one going to be? 18. But if you want to plug it in, could you plug 3 times 2 is 6 and add 12? So look carefully. As 2 items sold, did these 2 people make the same amount? If he knew he only was going to sell 2 items an hour, do these both pay the same amount? Yeah. Okay. But they are different payment plans. And then we're going to talk about, like, oh, how do they compare? Now, from this, let's make the graph. Now, do you want to use the equation, the table, or the sentence to make the graph? It's your call. I think the table is the easiest. Would you agree? Can you just plot the dots? Okay, so I'm going to use the table. I'm going to call this, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3. You could have gone every other. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3 down there. Those are items sold. And what's the biggest number we have here? Isn't it 18?
Yeah.
Isn't 18 your biggest? So what do we need to go by to fit 18? 3s? Would 3s maybe work? I think 3s will work pretty good. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So at 0, what was it?
12.
Wasn't it 12? At 1, wasn't it 15? And at 2, wasn't it 18? Do you guys see a line? Now look at this. Does the graph make sense? Is our y-intercept 12? Is our slope 3? Does it match? Now, I do want to point out something. This graph is wrong because technically, can you connect the dots? Can you sell half an item? I sold half an item today. I cut it in half. And do you see how technically, is there anything between these dots? Technically, I should not be connecting the dots, but I want to connect them to see the line. Do you understand technically these are dots? Because it's at the end of each time, meaning could I technically plug in a half item or a 1.5 items sold? No. So technically there should be no line, but we're doing it to see the line because we're graphing lines. That was kind of a weird side idea. So we now have this one completely done and this one completely done. To compare these, could you compare the graphs? Could you compare the equations? Could you compare anything to compare between them? Yes. Now we have this one, payment 3. And now we have a table to start with, a sequence, a pattern. Here's our pattern. So what do we want to create from this pattern? Well, we can do any of these first. Would the graph be pretty easy from here? Can I jump to the graph first this time? So let's go by, just like last time, let's go by ones here. 1, 2, 3 items. But to go up, look at these. I can't go by 3s because my biggest is 19. So 3s won't work. Can I just go by 5s? Is that okay? I'm going to go by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20. I could have went by 4s, but 3s would not have fit. And can we plot these? Yeah. At 0, don't I get 15? At 1, don't I get 17? At 2, don't I get 19? Now, is my graph perfect? No. But I chose to go by 5s here. I chose to go by 5s here and 1s here. But I have a basic graph right there. So we got the graph from there. What do you think's easier from here? To get the equation or the sentence? It varies by the person. I'm going to go with the equation first. I'm going to make an equation from one of these two. Now, if you want to think of it as a sequence, could you make the equation as a sequence? If you want to make it from the graph, can you think of it as a y-intercept and a slope? It's your call. Let's just think of it as a sequence. What are we adding each time?
2.
Are we adding 2 repeatedly? So wouldn't that be a 2x? Is the slope of your graph 2 every time? And what's my y-intercept? What is my 0 value? Isn't it 15? So when I put a plus 15 there, isn't that the term before the first term? Here's my first term. Isn't the term before that 15? It's called my 0 term. So you could think of it as y-intercept, or you could think of it as an arithmetic sequence. They're both interchangeable. Okay, so we have this payment plan. So let's go back to our sentence. How much is it an hour for this one? Is that the y-intercept or the slope? Which one's the hourly pay?
15.
The 15. So it's $15 an hour plus what?
$2.
Plus $2 per item sold. So $15 an hour plus $2 per item sold. Now we have 3 complete scenarios. We got to go to our 4th one here in a second. All right, last one. We're given a sentence. So we're given a sentence. He is paid $20 per hour and no commission. Oh, so he gets $20 an hour, but nothing. It doesn't matter how many he sells. So from this, what would be easiest to start? It all depends. What do you think? Maybe the equation or the table might be the easiest?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the table first. Okay, to do table, if he sold 0 items, how much would he get paid an hour? 20 bucks. Oh, awesome. Okay, if Jose sold 1 item, how many would he get paid that hour? 20 bucks. He has no commission. So no matter what, is he getting $20? No matter how many items, is he stay at 20 bucks an hour? Do you catch that? No matter how many items he sells, Jose sells, he gets 0 extra. But he got a good payment per hour. Okay. Wait, the equation might be a little hard here. If we jump up here. Okay, maybe not. Can we graph this? Watch graphing this. Can you put 1, 2, 3? And since 20 is the same every time, let's go by 5. 5, 10, 15, 20. So wouldn't 0 be 20? Wouldn't 1 be 20? Wouldn't this be 20? Do you see a pattern? Do you see how it's a flat line at 20? No matter how much Jose sells, he stays at $20 an hour, which is good payment per hour, but he stays at this flat line. So what would be his equation? What's the slope of a flat line? What's the slope of a flat line? Isn't it 0x plus 20? Isn't there no slope? 0 slope? Now, for some of you, would we rather write that as this? Is that a better way to write it? Y equals 20. On a test, you probably wouldn't see 0x plus 20. You'd probably see this. But this is what it's saying, because the slope is 0. So we now have all 4 scenarios. Okay, we got our 4 scenarios. Which method pays the most per hour, excluding commission? Okay, so excluding commission. Where do we see the hourly wage? For instance here, which number is the hourly wage? 4 or 10? Isn't 4 your commission and 10 your hour? So it says, which method pays the most per hour? So which one has the biggest y-intercept? Or the biggest value at 0? Isn't the biggest value at 0? You could say it's the biggest b, the biggest 0 value, the biggest y-intercept. It's anyway, they're all the same phrase, same thing. So which one pays the most per hour? Can you tell it's 4? $20. So we're going to call it 4. 4 is going to pay us the most per hour. Let's go to the next question. Which method pays the most per item sold? Per item sold. Excluding, I should have said excluding your hourly wage. Which one pays more? Well, is that your M or your B? Which one's item sold? M, right? Aren't we looking at the common difference, the slope? So which one is steepest? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Which one pays the best per item? Isn't it this guy right here, 4? Now, if these graphs all had the same scale, could you see the steeper one? If they all had the same scale, you see the steepness, but here the scales are different. Like each one, these two have the same scale, but these have different ones. So, all that said, are we good at this? It's 1. Now, real quick, how much is it they get in 1? Isn't it $4? Just so we can see it. And what was 4's on the first question? Was it $20? Just so we can see that. Are we okay? I put how much it is for each one as well. Okay, let's go to the next one. Which is the best choice of method if you usually sell 10 items per hour, and explain why? So let's say you sell 10 items per hour. Which one, just whatever business this is, you know you can sell quite a few. Which one do you think would be best? Well, if you're selling 10 items, do you care more about your hourly wage or your items sold? If you're selling, isn't that quite a few items? Aren't we looking at items sold? So which one, which one of these, wouldn't it be one of these two we'd want? Would you want this guy that gets more per item or this guy who doesn't care about how many items you sell? Can you tell you're probably looking at this guy? Wouldn't this one be the best if you sell a lot of items? So at a glance, are you cool with 1 is probably your best if you're selling 10 items? Probably. Let's go with 1. Now, how would I tell for sure? Could you plug in 10 to all 3 equations? All 4 equations. Could I technically plug in 10 here? Could I technically plug 10 here, 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 and here and see which one's bigger? Could I cross this one out right away? Because this one stays at 20. But can you see if I plugged in 10 to each of these, could you technically see which one's best? But at a glance, can you tell it's probably going to be 1 because it's growing the fastest, and 10's a little ways down. So what would be my explanation? Why would I want 1? It pays the most per hour. Pays the most per item. I would say it's something about paying the most per item sold, so it's probably, with 10 items, is going to be good. Alrighty. Which is the best choice of payment if you usually sell 2 items per hour? Explain why. So if you're selling only 2 items per hour, okay, which one, if you're only selling 2 items per hour, is that many items? Not a lot. Can you even just look at the table for this one? Can you look at the table for 2? Which one's the best? Which one looks the best? At 2, which one's the biggest payment? Well, this is 18. This is 18. This is 19. And this is 20. So if you sell at most 2 items per hour, which one's best? Isn't it going to be 4? And why? I simply looked at the table. Just look at the table. I would probably just write something like, it has the biggest, at 2, it's the most. It's the most at 2 items sold. Now, I would just look at my table and say it's the most at 2 items sold. But in general, would your instinct be 2 items is not a lot? Are you probably looking for the one with the biggest hourly wage? That would usually be your reasoning. But you could actually look at it, because there it is on my tables. I can find it exactly without plugging numbers in. The last question has opinion. The last question is completely opinion, but you need a reason behind it. Which method would you choose? Explain why. Well, if you knew you could not sell a lot of items, would you be doing this one? If you knew you could sell a lot of items, would you be choosing this one? If you knew, don't you have to figure out for yourself how many items you expect to sell per hour? Because couldn't one of these be better if you knew a special number of items you're selling? Like if you knew it's going to be, I can sell about 5 or 6. If you knew more about how many items you could sell, you might choose one of these. But if you just, so it's kind of iffy. It all depends on how many items you think you can sell to choose between all 4. So what would the answer be? It's your choice. You write whatever you think you would do, but it's based upon how many items you can sell. So I'm just going to put, it depends on how many items I can sell per hour. And that is the key to choosing wisely. Because again, this guy, if you can't sell a lot, is best. If you can sell a lot, this is better. If you're somewhere in the middle, these could be better, depending on what you predict is your hourly item sales. And again, this fits very good with being a waitress or waiter as well, depending on what you think an average tip is.